Whether you're sinking your teeth into a PMA event for the first time or have come back for a second bite of the cherry, welcome to Product Marketing Rendezvous. Before we set the ball rolling, we want to say a huge thank you to our speakers, you and everyone who is joining this event from around the world. We are sure you'll enjoy the sessions from our one-of-a-kind international lineup. With expert presentations, specialist talks and deep dive panel sessions on the agenda, suffice it to say, you're in for a treat. And here is some more good news. The insights don't stop here, not by a long shot. Our Slack community is home to dynamic conversations and contributions from thousands upon thousands of fellow product marketers. So if you're not already a member, come and join us today. It won't cost you a penny. If you have questions for the speakers or want to connect with them further, then please ask away in the comments section of the video or catch up with them on the PMA Slack community. But for now, sit back and join the rendezvous.
Hi there, my name's David Parker. I'm the head of product marketing at Xero. I'm really excited to be here today and share with you some of my experiences around shaping the role of product marketing within the product development lifecycle. I'll probably spend the next 20 minutes or so just going through some of these learnings that I've actually had over the years and getting some feedback from you guys. I'm really interested to hear about your journeys, if you can share any of that on the threads below, but also, you know, so we can actually try and push the conversation forward a little, because over the last couple of years, I've seen some amazing content come out. And have been interested in myself to actually take a role within product over the last few years and come back into product marketing, which has given me a lot of interesting insights to come from one side over to the other, and realize that perhaps some of those challenges that I was having as a product marketer were less of a challenge and more of an opportunity. So a little bit about me. You can probably tell from my accent that I am a Brit. So I was originally, I started my career over in the UK before moving to New Zealand. I was lucky enough to work for some really great brands, really customer focused, both in the tech space and fast moving consumer goods. One of the interesting things is actually that whilst I spent a lot of my career focused on building great customer value propositions, I never actually held the role of a product marketer until I joined Xero. So one of the things that I found instantly gratifying was the fact that this term product marketing was just able to bring together so many different disciplines that unofficially floated around the business, and actually being able to be that custodian of the customer within a business was just an amazing thing. So a little bit more about Xero, where I hone my craft today. Xero is an online accounting platform that's really focused on providing a beautiful accounting experience. I know that sounds hard to believe, but as a real design-focused organization, a real customer-focused organization, what we seek to do is to basically rip up the playbook on how small businesses do their accounting, how they work with their accountants as well, and really make the most of the amazing work that's done in supporting small business across the globe. Now, it wouldn't be a SaaS company overview without a hockey stick. Here's ours. We started in about 2006, and certainly within the last few years, we've really scaled quite significantly across the globe, have roughly around 2.5 million customers now. and here's some more numbers that I can baffle you with. So we're used by customers in about 180 countries. Thankfully, we're not in 180 countries currently, because that would be quite an interesting stakeholder matrix. But one of the things that I'm certainly really lucky enough to have seen over the last few years is actually just how we've scaled as a business. And added some amazing functions and bolstered some amazing functions like product marketing. So we're up to around just over 3,000 Xeros across the globe now. Here's my shameless plug. Join us on the Xero Careers channel and check us out. We've got heaps of roles being hired across the globe at the moment. But specifically, what I wanted to really highlight is, with the scale that we now have as a business, we have a huge opportunity as product marketing to again double down on that idea of being the custodian of that customer value proposition, and just making a really, really powerful stance on how we can think about the way in which we shape our product development, and being a real co-pilot, is the way that I tend to see it, to product development. Now, a few little credentials that are worthwhile covering off as we start, just to highlight the way in which we run product marketing. So the first thing is, product and product marketing are within the same organization. So the ability to actually be part of that same organizational structure is a great vantage point for us to work really closely with that product development process. In terms of the discussion on product marketing seat at the table and how senior that has got, I'm really stoked that over the last few months we've taken a big step forward in that, in having an amazing new product marketing leader in the business. Hey Jen, if you're watching, join the business. And actually really elevate that conversation of product marketing at the product leadership table. So myself and 4 other product marketing leads work really closely with that leader to make sure that we are escalating those conversations to the very highest level, to make sure that we are really focused on creating great customer value propositions. What I'll go into now is just some of those initial learnings that I've actually had recently, as I mentioned, from going through my career journey at Xero, from being in product and product marketing. And I think it answered a lot of things for me in quite a confronting way, which is a really great story for me to be able to share with you guys today. So the first thing I wanted to really focus on was actually the role of product management. I don't want to go into this too much. There certainly is enough content around the role of product management in SaaS in particular. But one of the things I think product managers do really well is to actually just distill down this idea of the product development process simply being a way of taking a very focused approach of aligning the external environment with the internal capability that we have to arrive at some amazing customer value. Now, one of the biggest things that I was excited about when going from a product marketing role into a product management role was being able to take that super focused view of the customer value proposition, and thinking about, you know, the nuance of the message in prioritizing the roadmap, thinking about, you know, new segments that we could be developing as part of existing product strategies, etc. And one of the biggest pieces of inspiration for me was actually from one of my big SaaS company crushes, HubSpot. If I'm sure many of you guys use this. As a business, I find them very forward thinking in terms of the way that they think about the relationship between product marketing activities and product activities as they may have been seen in the past. And that's really with a very matrixed view between thinking about short and long term market opportunities, and also the short and long term of how we're building the product out with all of those necessary hard calls to make through the process. So In saying that, one of the biggest things that I learned when I went into product management was actually a little bit more like this. One of the things that I never quite understood before going into a product role was actually the fact that the complexity of dealing with what was essentially a live product that we are constantly trying to iterate brings with it a level of challenge that essentially takes away a lot of the time and space to be able to think as a product manager around the customer and the value proposition, and more focused around how we could optimize teams to be able to deliver in the best value. Now, what I soon learned was actually the best way in which I could actually continue to cover a really customer-focused view was to be able to work collaboratively with a product marketer. I very quickly went from a place of thinking, I know how to do product marketing, that's great, and thinking I would do it all myself, and actually, it's just such a critical thing. The product managers need someone by their side who's able to focus on that. So I think that was such a big learning for me in thinking that this can only ever work in an optimal way if product managers work with product marketers side by side. In saying that, one of the really interesting things that I noticed from some of the data shared in the State of Product Marketing report was between 2019 and 2020, we actually went backwards slightly in terms of product marketing, working with product management to shape the roadmap. Now, I found this really interesting because obviously it's been a really challenging year. Between 2019 and 2020, heaps has gone on. The world has changed. The way in which we structure our teams has changed in many organizations. But I think it's a really important thing to ponder on, because if product marketing is to add the value that it has the potential to do in all organizations, then this balance must change. And it must become much closer to 100%. So in saying that, one of the things that I have also experienced in my career within the product marketing space is actually how to make sure that as a product marketer, you are being able to, for the want of a better word, control that process of getting to market. And one of the things that I had to really quickly learn was actually, if you as a product marketer aren't in that pod, if you're not involved in that product development process, things will progress without you. There's a very well-oiled machine and it moves at pace, and thank goodness it moves at pace, because certainly in SaaS it has to. But sometimes it can feel a little bit like this cartoon. I use this in presentations all the time, so anyone who's at Xero has probably seen this from me many times. Apologies. But one of the biggest things that I always laugh about is just this way of thinking about throwing over the fence a product to marketing. That is like never the place that anybody ever wants to be in an organization, for many reasons: misalignment, losing the opportunity to make the most of a product launch, getting the targeting wrong, getting the messaging wrong, all of these different things that can actually really mean that great product actually doesn't come to great outcome. So it's something that is a big consideration for me, both in terms of how to work, support my team to work best with product management. But the single biggest thing that I always try to advocate is this idea of putting our hands up and actually saying that we want to be involved. We want to be able to find a way of actually being part of those conversations in a scalable way, to ensure that we're always bringing forward that value proposition view. One of the things that's happened at Xero over the last 12 months or so is that we have taken a much more officiated stance within that product development process. That is, for me, one of the biggest achievements that I've ever seen in a product marketing space, and something I was really, really stoked to see as a product stakeholder at the time when this started to evolve. But I think one of the biggest things that I would say, knowing that many organizations don't quite yet have a structure where everyone has their part to play in a very linear process, is actually the most important thing to harbor is that relationship. The relationship between a product marketer and a product manager is such an important one and needs to sit right at the very, very heart of success as a product marketer. Actually, the level of understanding that a product marketer has of their product management stakeholder in terms of their strengths, their weaknesses, their needs, in order to make sure that the product developed is really focused on that customer and market outcome is just such a critical skill. Now, the next part that I'm going to go into is very much related to that previous slide I showed that basically outlined that product marketing pod. This one right here. Now, where we get to in scenarios like this is that essentially there will be a process. And goodness me, product marketing is very, very good at coming up with processes. It's one of the things that I sometimes find the most interesting about the way that we can shape up our teams for success. But earlier on in my career, I had to learn very, very quickly that whilst we can create amazing lucid charts, slides with slide decks with 30 plus pages, this doesn't necessarily mean change. And in particular, within the product space, the processes that product hold with technology, with their other counterparts, is so rigorous and so encompassing that actually the opportunity for product marketing is never to achieve revolution with a process. It's only ever to evolve. Now, the way in which I started to think about that actually even changed further as I came back out of product into product marketing again, thinking about this whole idea of being able to effectively revolve around a product marketing framework, a product management framework rather. So here's the usual kind of overview of agile, Kanban, sprints, Scrum, the backlog, all of these tag words, which sometimes to a product marketer who hasn't been involved in a product development process before can sound like something that is very time consuming to be a part of. But I think one of the biggest things to learn about this is actually just getting involved enough to understand how we can shape our approach to have the biggest success. Here's the classic burn down chart, and a way that I try to summarize the thinking for our team in terms of how much we get involved, which is essentially there's 3 stages with going about this product development process for us to consider. At the beginning, we're going to work with product stakeholders to think about, okay, there's generally some opportunities that we're going to want to explore. Then go into the next process about learning what that actually takes to achieve those critical jobs to be done. And then actually that final process of getting to a minimum viable product that we can shape a value proposition around. Now, this is super interesting for a product marketer to think about how they're to spend their time. But actually, one of the biggest things that I see as success is actually being able to understand those milestones for us as product marketers, rather than necessarily investing heaps of time in going through every single piece of detail. And again, that comes back to that relationship with the product manager. One of the things that I tend to look at for the milestones within our team is thinking about that first step. Do we understand the customer opportunity and the problem? We're probably still a way away from understanding what that value proposition is, and that's okay. But just actually understanding the general landscape is super interesting. And again, there's heaps of collaboration that can go on between a product manager and a product marketer in that space, thinking about things like competitor analysis and looking at, segmenting the TAM into effective SAM and different exercises like this. Now, as time progresses, that view of the total addressable market, the serviceable addressable market, and how we're going to achieve those key jobs to be done, then gets into this idea of this is where we think we're going to progress to as a product team. So that's the first time a product marketer can actually step up and start exploring what's a cool value proposition. How can we start working backwards from this? Quite often, even perhaps slightly before this process, things like a draft press release in that classic Amazon style is a way of starting to hone that down. But this is super useful for starting to actually align some of the different teams in the business to understanding that better and to start avoiding some of the inherent risks that come when the marketing teams and other stakeholders in the business are essentially bookended in the process. They might be briefed initially to say that, hey, we're developing this product, and then right at the end, they might then understand, oh, and it looks like this. But again, that's really where product marketing can start to add the value and pulling the insights from the different layers of the business to start iterating on that. And naturally, it's only really towards that last part of where those artifacts like internal playbooks, sales enablement tools, and those deliverables that you might expect to see of a product marketing team start to disperse around the business. But actually, the role of product marketing throughout that whole process has literally been a part of that core squad, and also by piggybacking across the various sprints and different opportunities for them to get involved through that process. So sometimes it's quite a difficult one for a product marketer to think that actually sometimes the output is only seen more towards the end, but there's heaps of other ways in which we need to think about those outputs being shaped through the process. So the next point that I'm going to bring is that could be seen as slightly to the contrary of what I've been saying, but one of the inherent risks of becoming really closely aligned with a product development process is that actually you start to get that groupthink. So when I say groupthink, I mean in terms of really starting to understand the level of complexity that may come between having the idea and having the proposed solution. And that is a great thing for a product marketer to understand because it builds empathy across the business. But one of the inherent challenges is if a product marketer isn't careful, you start getting this process of just bouncing a product manager and a product marketer essentially starting to talk the same language, and that is something really to avoid. In most cases, what I really try to help certainly my team think about is how do we balance the amount of time that we're actually spending on the product management relationship side of things, as well as the go-to-market teams. And the real opportunity cost of not doing that is really that it's the core value of product marketing and actually being able to make sure that we are bringing those insights to the table effectively. One little tool that I've tried to use in the past is sometimes actually just thinking about how much time, you can even do it by looking at your Google Calendar, is how much time have I spent with different stakeholders? And included within those different stakeholders is your other go-to-market peers, specifically product marketing, but really understanding actually how much you're weighting your time towards the different areas, because depending on the type of product marketing role you're in, actually it might mean that you're just spending your time mostly with your product development pod, and there's a huge risk in doing that by not having that broader view. So in kind of building on from that point, taking that broad view across the business is another really amazing piece of value that product marketing can bring. But it actually brings about some of the challenges with knowing what to focus on and what to surface. So one of the big developments in product development that's kind of happened over the years has been this idea of OKRs, and this idea of these single results and metrics that mean so much to a product team and a product delivery process. But actually, in a product marketer's mind, there might be many, many more different ideas and achievements that might be softer metrics. They might not be as hard as a particular adoption metric. But then again, they might also be something that is incredibly important from a commercial standpoint. So things like CAC, LTV, other KPIs that exist around customer success functions, bringing those into the product development process in a really, really strict way can be really, really valuable. One of the things, I think is super important, and the question to always be asking is, great, we're going to build a product for a particular segment, but what do we genuinely think that's going to mean from the go-to-market funnel? What is it about those customers that we need to watch out for? And what does it mean that we need to tweak, maybe in the onboarding process or other things that a product manager or a product stakeholder is not always able to get to, just due to the breadth of the consideration. So again, this is where this partnership just becomes so important. And to kind of summarize that, it's really not thinking as much about the output as the outcome. And that outcome can come in many different ways. We don't always have to be so focused on a single North Star metric, but we can have fun by pulling through all of the different focuses in the business. So these were the key learnings that I kind of really wanted to share. And in a nutshell, I guess I haven't really shared any big light bulb moment or playbook to say, hey, this is how we're going to get much closer to the product development process. But what I will say is actually that there is a mindset and a mantra to product marketing that is just so valuable, which is actually just being comfortable with the uncomfortable. Things like not being able to latch onto a particular framework, for example, that is taken across the whole product organization and taken as the way in which that we always engage in go-to-market processes, can be quite uncomfortable. Relying more on relationships rather than officiated product development frameworks can again be quite difficult to actually know where to focus your time and even what's your role as a product marketer. But I think if we're able to actually take a really close view on actually the different pockets of value that we can unlock as product marketers through that whole value chain, that's really where the fun happens. And that's really where we start to make these big changes across the business. So as I mentioned at the start of this talk, I'm super excited about the next stage that we can go in as Xero. I don't necessarily know where that goes. All I know is that actually it comes through this really great collaboration. And there'll be different things that product marketing can take ownership for, different things that product marketing can lean greater into. But it all comes down to that mindset, those relationships, and as I say, being quite comfortable with it being an evolutionary process. So really stoked for everyone to kind of comment and give thoughts on some of the things that I've shared. But thanks so much for your time, and hope that you enjoy the rest of the rendezvous. Thanks.
Welcome back to Product Marketing Rendezvous. Having a great time so far? We can't say we're surprised. After all, it's an event quite like no other. The good news, we've plenty more magic up our sleeves that's guaranteed to blow you and your fellow PMMs off your feet. But before we serve up another slice of product marketing prowess, we want to take a moment to thank everyone who's played a part in making this event possible. Speakers, presenters, and of course you, the product marketing community. Remember, you can engage with speakers and their sessions by posting your question in the comments section or reaching them in our Slack community. Now sit back and above all, enjoy.
G'day everyone, and welcome to Making Lemonade, Avoiding Obsolescence with Rapid Innovation. I'm Nate Hewitt, Head of Product Marketing at Equiem. I've been in marketing and content for just over 9 years, and have previously worked as a Metro News journalist in Melbourne, Australia. My specialties are content marketing and copywriting. This session is called Making Lemonade because it tells the story of how Equiem weathered the COVID-19 pandemic by deploying radical and swift changes to its products and marketing strategies. We encountered so many lemons that the classic adage became our catch cry. Over a period of 5 months, the business was steeped in a continual phase of trial and error. Our strategic playbook was only partially helpful, leaving us with a single charge: serve the customer, stay relevant, make lemonade. In the end, we emerged with a new playbook in hand, formed by a few key lessons. Before we dive into the case study, here's some background and context. Equiem is the global leader in tenant experience technology in commercial real estate. Our clients are commercial landlords, real estate investment trusts, and property managers who own and manage premium and A-grade office buildings in some of the world's major cities. Our flagship product is a tenant experience platform, which is used daily by more than 175,000 end users across 230 buildings in North America, UK, Ireland, and Australia. It is delivered in the form of a desktop app and a native mobile app for iOS and Android. Think of the tenant experience platform as a kind of social and services hub for an office building. It's a place tenants go to read news and events, engage with their peers, buy products like food and drink from on-site retailers, dry cleaning as well, join events, make flexible space bookings, and more. The platform also digitizes traditional services and amenities like work requests and concierge inquiries. Landlords adopt our product to modernize their buildings, differentiate their value prop, unlock new revenue, and attract and retain tenants over the long term. Many typically white label our platform to achieve these goals. Our product suite, however, is more expansive than that core tenant experience platform solution. Landlords can add modules to further extend customer service or streamline back-of-house operations. We offer an inbuilt content management system, an event management system, and so on. As you can see, even before the pandemic, marketing and selling our solutions succinctly was no easy task. There are a few key reasons for this. First, tenant experience is a burgeoning corner of commercial real estate. Market consensus suggests that tenant experience technology is a must-have for landlords who want to usher in the future of the modern office, but not all can see how that technology clearly achieves that result. This is a common issue for business working in emerging technologies and not something specific to us. Second, landlords, particularly the big monoliths of global real estate, move at a glacial pace. This is understandable given their size. However, it means that by the time we have finished selling a tailored solution to a band of key decision makers, many of those decision makers have departed the business or are soon to leave. More often, budgets are cut, sometimes entire departments are reshuffled. Hard resets like these are the bane of our sales cycle, which is already quite long. We've made efforts to simplify our sales process, at times successfully, but aligning our pace with traditional landlords at times is extremely difficult. Third, our hybrid B2B2C model. Most of the time we help landlords connect to their customers, which of course are our end users. But our community engagement specialists also work with users directly on the ground. And for another example, our e-commerce platform brings us into direct contact with on-site retailers on behalf of landlords. On any given day, we are Uber Eats, the Apple Store, Amazon, and LinkedIn all rolled into one. So historically, when we tried to condense our products and solutions into a single value proposition, we would inevitably employ the same superlatives: complete solution, end-to-end, one-stop shop. We have described ourselves using each of these phrases, and there's nothing wrong with them inherently. But through the course of the pandemic, we learned that being a multi-stop shop can be just as effective. March 2020, Lemonade Day. For Equiem, the shift to home working was swift. And because we were ourselves commercial tenants, we had a peculiar window into the situations faced by both our clients and our end users, the tenants. We could see right away that landlords were scrambling to maintain communication channels with tenants. Tenants, meanwhile, dropped everything to safely coordinate the great migration to remote working. No one was thinking about the upcoming Easter egg hunt in the lobby, which we had organised for some of the buildings we serviced. Though the mass exits happened at slightly different times across our 3 regions, the situation played out almost identically. Our platform certainly helped to keep the 2 user groups connected, at least in one direction, but we quickly saw that a fatal rift was opening, and we were smacked with an existential problem. How can you have a social building community platform with no people in the building? Our marketing team had to face a related set of questions. How do we market our products and solutions effectively during a period of crisis? Which of our products and solutions do we push? Who is our audience now? And how will we generate quality leads for our BD teams? Landlords, meanwhile, were grappling with the prospect of widespread lease forfeitures and shifting cap rates, among other quandaries. I like to call the day of coordinated response Lemonade Day. Our US-based CEO, Gavin Millen, gathered us together. It was an early morning in Australia, late night in New York, and I think I was in my PJs at the time. The sum of that meeting boils down to this, and I mentioned it before. Serve the customer, stay relevant, make lemonade. Thus came the first of our overnight innovations, Remote by Equiem. We took our existing products, altered them slightly, and reorganized them into a packaged solution with a single purpose, making our platform relevant and useful to both landlords and remote workers in this new world that they both faced. It was the first time in a while that we'd ever been so single-minded with our product strategy. For me as a copywriter, it was a point of joy and relief. It's not often that you're able to distill your business into a single reactive solution and forsake every other message. April 2020, remote in full swing. Remote by Equiem was led by Paul Stanton, our global head of strategy. I acted as his 2IC and helped the 3 regions with execution. Of course, I'd be remiss if I didn't acknowledge the joint efforts of our global team members, some of whom you can see now on screen. The success of Remote and our subsequent initiatives is due to the tireless efforts of our many departments. If the statistics hold true, most of you watching this right now are working between your home and office. Perhaps you work 1 day a week in the office and spend the rest of your time working remotely. But back in April, you were very likely at home. The majority of our end users certainly were. And one day, seemingly out of the blue, they were invited by their office community platform to log in and enjoy an all-new range of virtual services and amenities. Before, they would sign up to lobby activations and fitness classes on the 10th floor. Now, they were being invited to participate in yoga live streams and to join community drinks events on Zoom. Remote was therefore a good old-fashioned pivot. We took the concept to our clients after just weeks of germination with a single confident message. So your people aren't coming in. So what? It's not permanent. In the meantime, you can maintain communication with them, add value, generate goodwill, and tease them back effectively when the time is right. That message was replicated in our marketing. Suddenly, Equiem was no longer a tenant experience platform or workplace technology solutions provider. We were a wartime necessity for landlords, as essential as plumbing or HVAC. And each product served that single concept. Before, when marketing our e-commerce platform, we would lean heavily on the virtually endless possibility it could afford. Generate new revenue, empower retailers, offer subscription services and bookings, we said. With Remote, e-commerce was purely a vehicle allowing on-site retailers to sell new products or coupons during the pandemic for later use. The context of COVID-19 dictated all messaging. We had become remote, effectively. Landlords looked at the value proposition, I can stay relevant right now, and they could not dispute the ROI. Many consecutive late night, early morning meetings were spent devising the full range of services that would be included in our remote offering. The Global Remote Task Force assembled a network of health and wellness providers who would live stream free fitness classes, cooking classes, and other sessions directly to our platforms. Our new partner network, made up by brands like Fender, Nikon, Office Love, and others, offered promotions and curated at-home products for our end users. Quality and scalability were our main parameters. Landlords and property management teams, meanwhile, received a library of content templates via our CMS, which would enable them to interact with their tenants quickly and effectively. They could send out a building update, spruik a particular live stream, or promote a retailer using these templates and an email blast in a matter of minutes. I mentioned that we debuted Remote after just weeks of germination. Those weeks were ripe with opportunities for learning and growth, particularly with regards to sales enablement. The first lesson, therefore, is this: interpret effectively. The small remote task force designed and implemented its end user programming in a matter of hours and days, so we worked rapidly. At first, however, the rest of the business was just outside that bubble, so we took for granted that they could properly ingest and relay the updates they received to clients and leads. For instance, we sent out an info pack describing how platforms would be slightly restructured to accommodate new on-demand multimedia libraries. Our content teams would be responsible for executing that work, and they were prepped to do so. But in our zeal to see the innovation brought to life, we neglected to pass on project specifics to our account managers, crucial notes that would help them explain the changes to clients. So in response to that problem, we quadrupled the amount of briefing materials we provided. The standard formula contained 4 items. You can see them on screen. The first was a one-pager or crib sheet designed to be passed directly onto client teams. The second was a pitch deck slide, which was a slight variation on the one-pager with less information and an introductory lead-in. This was designed to fit within the ever-evolving remote section of our global pitch decks, sort of like Lego bricks. The third was an FAQ document detailing answers to the questions we expected both from clients and our account managers. And the fourth was an in-person briefing meeting in which we fielded any and all follow-up questions. These meetings would be recorded and then disseminated after the fact so they could be viewed at any point. We still use this formula in our sales enablement efforts, particularly when announcing new products or technological developments. It's an effective way to make sure that technical information is boiled down to its most basic elements and that all our teams are properly aligned, even those that don't use the product directly. Remote quickly proved itself a success, and it generated quality leads, which led to closed deals, all in a matter of weeks rather than months. But this success illuminated long-standing inefficiencies in our processes. Equiem is a team of visionaries and leaders and dreamers, but historically, we've lacked process managers and maintainers. That would often result in a design-by-committee approach to the creation of marketing collateral. Everyone gets a say, and rightly so, but rounds of correction interlink and the path to completion becomes murky. It wasn't uncommon during the inception of Remote to see file names labelled Final, Final 2, Final 3, and so on. The second lesson, therefore, is this. Beware Parkinson's law. Parkinson's law suggests that work expands to fill the time allotted. Whenever we had given ourselves 2 weeks to complete a downloadable content asset, for instance, production would usually take 2.2 or 2.4 weeks. During Remote, though, we had hours to make downloadable assets. And guess what? We discovered the same amount of work could be completed to an almost identical standard within hours instead of weeks. Were we sleeping less or just being more efficient? Probably a little bit of both. Creating a white paper or ebook in a matter of hours requires a small, crack team of creatives, a clear hierarchy, and swift approvals. At our best, we would have one writer and one graphic designer creating content from a brief, usually passed down by a VP of marketing or the executive team or myself. At the start, the creative would say, this is coming in 4 hours, and they would mean it. Then we knew it would be passed on to our VP of marketing, our head of strategy, our CEO, and myself by that stipulated deadline. We would approve it or pass it back within hours, and we would progress accordingly. Would these assets have been greatly improved by an additional cohort of reviewers, editors? Probably. But as we learned, we would still be working on them now. Of course, condensing deadlines requires care, but I've always erred on the side of completionism. If I can secure consistent output in my content marketing calendar, for instance, I would prefer that over ensuring each post is my magnum opus. So to beat Parkinson's law, I would say this: trust your creatives, keep your feedback team small, and operate within the strictest deadlines you can possibly handle. Prototyping without permission. Following the success of Remote, we developed and launched Return in July and August of 2020. It was an initiative to help landlords bring tenants safely back to their buildings. With Return, our solutions were more technical. So we plan to offer safety guideline templates, interactive building re-entry agreements, bookable building entry slots, and other nifty tools. Let's focus on the interactive re-entry agreements for a moment. This was of particular interest to landlords who needed a way to ensure incoming tenants were aware of the COVID regulations in force of their building. Many wanted to track compliance also if they could. Additionally, a successful interactive module would help them to verify that they could use our platform effectively to communicate with and market to their customers. This was of particular interest to new clients. We had a few solutions in mind to address this need, but one afternoon in August, when I was probably still in my PJs, I had a crazy idea for how we might create an interactive guide / social contract for tenant users, while at the same time marketing our best platform features. I contacted one of our dedicated product team members and asked for their help to create a prototype for the platform tour. It took the promise of a case of Victoria Bitter, but he agreed, and we made a clandestine duo. Together, we figured out that we could lay an intercom product tour over our tenant experience platform. When users arrived on the platform, they were prompted to complete an interactive tour that would take them across the different pages, finishing with an acknowledgement of readership. It was a neat solution to our problem, one of many eventually deployed. The point is this: if I'd gone to our CEO first and said, Gab, what if we used intercom? She would have said, sure, make lemonade, show me how it works. In another universe, however, a leader might just as easily say, there's no time, or intercom is too expensive, or that's not your job. And I've certainly encountered this throughout my career. Sometimes, therefore, it pays to preempt and circumvent roles and jobs and hierarchies to create something interesting and useful. Point is something tangible first. Make sure you have something before unleashing $1 million idea on your team, but don't be afraid to be irritating. We have done similar things since with our product marketing assets. For instance, no one told us that we could chop up an existing video series promoting our vastly complicated data analytics product. But once we did it, we realized that we uncovered new angles to simplify the way we sold it. Not only that, we learned to better economize and recycle our content. Having emerged, at least partially, from our remote phase, we've learned a host of lessons that will serve us in 2020 and beyond. For instance, put your BD people through the ringer, nicely, of course, and make sure that they understand the product better than anyone. Coach, test, quiz, and nurture them with a steady feed of content that they can both read and use. Make sure you know the product too, its beauty spots and its wars. I know this sounds obvious, but I've worked with many product marketers and sales professionals who do not work intimately with the product they are selling. Immerse yourself in your product from the point of view of various stakeholders within your business, even entry-level users. You will discover new ways in which the product is used, you will discover its blemishes, and you will better see how it serves your customers. This can be a daily exercise or done as part of a quarterly refresher, but the immersion itself is essential. This is particularly true with new features. So when a new product or upgrade is released by our development team at Equiem, I don't stop at the briefing materials they provide, which are helpful. I go directly to the users in our company who use the product or will be responsible for it and have them teach me about how it works practically. This makes for better sales enablement assets for our BD teams every time. The second lesson is, when it comes to content, economize. During remote, I personally created 45 different informational decks with different purposes. Not all were used, but that doesn't mean my output was useless. Those decks will serve Equiem's content marketing strategy for years to come. Recently, and I suspect as a result of the pandemic, the tenant experience space has been infected by vaporware and a minority of bad actors. These bad actors have led effective miseducation campaigns about what the technology is and what it can do. Slowly but systematically, duplicitous marketing has influenced the market. So prospective customers have begun to say to us, X provider can do a deep access control integration out of the box. Why can't you? For the record, in the context of tenant experience technology, there is no real such thing as a deep integration. Secondly, out-of-the-box access control integrations are just not possible, at least not in the way described. But that doesn't matter because the truth has been obscured. It proves that by being honest about what our tech can do, we had, at least in the beginning, lessened our competitive potency. As a product marketer, I've seldom encountered a market where misinformation and limited technical knowledge are such barriers to lead generation and sales success. But we have discovered an interesting and unexpected solution: the damaging admission. The vaporware shysters have won clients through falsehood. Invariably, those clients realize they've been swindled. Then they come to us and they're twice shy. Much time is then spent trying to convince them about the concept of tenant experience in general, not about our particular solution. One of the ways our marketing helps to win them over preemptively is through the use of what Josh Kaufman calls the damaging omission. You might have also heard it called the pratfall effect. We balance marketing spin and benefit statements with transparent admissions about what our product cannot do or what it cannot yet do. Prospective clients have come to us and said, we need a flexible space platform that functions exactly like the WeWork platform. Can you do that? Others say they can. Not only would we say no when our other competitors have said definitely, we would go further and say, we're not actually happy with this particular set of features on our FlexSpace platform. Here's why we're not happy with them. We're investing in improving this currently, so if that's an issue for you, we can look at other options together that better serve your needs. The idea of putting a slightly scuffed foot forward is anathema to many big businesses, but for us, it has produced net gain. Several clients have come from competitors to us and thanked us for our transparency. For our marketing team too, it allows us to escape the arms race and have more sophisticated conversations about the technology and the solutions themselves. We're not wasting our time beating our chest over integrations that don't exist. We're talking about integrations and how they properly work so clients can start to prepare their own systems to work with ours. It saves time for everyone. Equiem is now working on a complete reformation of its product suite, which will reorganize all product verticals and solutions under 4 main pillars and 4 main user groups. This reformation was designed in collaboration with our clients, who are looking past the horizon of COVID to the future of hybrid working and the modern office building. Our products will proactively address their coming needs. The work we did for remote and return initiatives brought forward around 12 months of work plan in our roadmap. With that found time, we're now focusing on growing a community of thought leaders and advocates who can help us lift the standard of veracity and product quality within the tenant experience market. Equiem was the first to do what we do, and I think it's about time we take our place on the podium. Thanks very much for joining me. Please reach out on LinkedIn if you've got any questions. My phone number and email address are up on screen as well. Happy to chat as well if you'd just like to chat. Thanks to Rose and the Product and Marketing Alliance team for inviting me to come and share. I really appreciate it. Thanks.
Welcome, bienvenue, g'day, ni hao, hola. Wherever you are joining us from today, we want to say a huge welcome to our global community. We hope you are enjoying Product Marketing Rendezvous. And a special thank you to all our speakers and participants who together form our spectacular international lineup. Their sessions are bursting with insights to help the product marketing community level up. And remember, have your questions at the ready because the speakers will be answering your questions and offering tailored support after their presentations. Leave your question in the comments below and get awesome advice from an expert in the field. What's not to love about that? So now let's resume the rendezvous.
Hey guys, it's Jay Rusden here from the Product Marketing Alliance Ambassador team. I'm down here in Melbourne, one of the best places to be in the world, or luckiest places I should say, with the lockdown and the global pandemic. We've been pretty fortunate here. And I'm here with Uttam. Uttam, do you want to just introduce yourself and tell us where you're at?
Sure, Jay. Great to be here, and I agree. Melbourne is the best place this time of year, with the tennis and the weather and the rest. Yeah, look, basically, I've been in the digital and marketing field for about the last 15 years, working across various brands. I've worked in energy and telco, and most recently in financial services. So I currently head up product marketing at MeBank, and product marketing is obviously a growing field. And one of the areas that I'm really passionate about is, data and privacy, which is really top of mind for a lot of people.
Yeah, okay. And ME Bank, I think a lot of our audience is probably outside of Australia. Is ME Bank an Australian specific brand, and what do you guys do?
Yeah, absolutely. ME Bank is an Australian bank, Australian owned and operated. It's been around for about 25 years. It's definitely not one of your bigger banks. We're probably a mid-tier bank, but we do compete heavily with some of our big four banks in Australia. In terms of our brand, we're kind of different. We're a bit of a challenger brand. We consider us to be a little bit different, a little bit more quirky than some of the other brands out there, but we speak directly to our Australian consumers.
Yeah, nice. And yeah, I suppose that's a good place to kick off the conversation around data. So I'm curious, and banking is a really interesting industry. I've come from the telco space myself, like very highly regulated, but a lot of data there.
Yeah.
Where do you think things are at from a consumer perspective of what they expect, marketers, ourselves, and brands in how we use their data and how we manage it?
Yeah, look, great question. I think, we're all consumers, right, Jay? So I'm a consumer. And I guess when it comes to data, you take a bit of a leap of faith with your data when you invest in a product, or so you expect that the company that you're investing your money with are going to look after your data and your personal identity and those sorts of things. So as a consumer, if you think back to maybe, say, 10 years ago, our expectations around how our data is managed has significantly changed, right? Customer expectations have gone through the roof. So I feel like it is a really important aspect for brands and companies to think about how they're managing their customer data.
Yeah. Okay. And yeah, I mean, I think there's a few other things, in the media at the forefront in recent years that brings it much more to our attention, right? And I think people are getting a lot more savvy that a free product or a free social media profile is not necessarily free. There's something that the company's getting out of it, and it certainly makes you think a lot more. I know I've been a lot more conscious of it over the last few years of what I sign up for, what I don't, right?
Absolutely, and like you mentioned, there's no free lunch out there. It doesn't exist, and generally, if we're buying something, you sort of expect that business is going to go away and use it for some reason. And in banking, even though we're highly regulated, we have access to a whole raft of data that we can then use for marketing purposes.
Yeah. And so with that in mind, there's different expectations out from consumers, but, as marketers or product marketers, there's still an imperative there for us to be able to collect data and use that to not just sell better, but also to offer value and deliver that value in the best way possible for our customers. So apart from the obvious, where are you focused, or where do you think the focus should be on the data that we collect as marketers?
Yeah, so I mean, the old school, collecting names, email addresses, postcodes, all that sort of stuff, that's still important because that helps you build obviously your database if you're a small business. For larger businesses, it just helps you get organized, runs your data pool, your data structure, and that sort of jazz. In terms of email addresses and phone numbers, the reason these things become so important is you can actively target people via the likes of Facebook and Google, not just prospective customers, but existing customers as well. So it gives you an advantage in being able to find these customers and then present the right message at the right time. So contextual advertising, when they're in the right mindset to then hopefully converting that customer.
Yeah, and I think hopefully converting is definitely part of the equation. And I know in my space, not my space, the social media profile, like my space, the area I work in, in software and startups, adoption is just as big a topic every day, every start of week that we talk about what we're doing, what we're focusing on. So what about, is there more data points or any examples from your work in that adoption space?
Sure, absolutely there is. And so one of the other things we look at is our app. Now MeBank has quite a few customers on their app, and digital adoption for me is, how many customers can I get onto the app that are not only just logging on, but, what are they doing when they get onto the app? Are they transacting? Are they moving their money around? Those sort of data points give you, I guess, a whole raft of information that you can understand, decipher, and then use to your advantage from a lifecycle marketing perspective as well. So yeah.
Yeah, and is there any, not without sharing any commercially sensitive information, is there any kind of examples where you've been able to play that out in your team and make an impact with it that you're proud of?
Yeah, sure. I mean, very small things like, for example, we've got enterprise targets around, how many, how many active digital customers we have, and then being able to move that percentage. And we've been able to do a really good job of really driving that percentage through things like, marketing campaigns. So asking them to, review their current statements and go, have you thought about a digital statement? So lots of people still are on paper statements and moving them from paper to digital, and at the same time getting them onto the app from an adoption standpoint. There's a real commercial use behind what we're doing.
Yeah. Okay. Cool. Interesting. And I think, if we stay on that topic there a little bit about kind of acquisition and adoption, and obviously we look in the middle as that kind of key point of conversion when they buy into a product. And, these days, most of us working on digital products, we have, that point of conversion, we have the opportunity to build out a pretty strong profile or take a leap forward in that data that we have about the customer. And as I said, my philosophy is that data is much more, I suppose there's more value to the customer if we're acquiring it in a way that allows us to deliver more value for them and not just sell more to them at the same time. So what about, sorry, I just got some funny sounds in my headphones.
No worries.
What about so when we get to build out that profile there, what about earlier in the process rather than waiting all the way till that point of conversion, and bringing that earlier into the journey?
Yeah, absolutely. And this is something we think about quite a bit, not just at the bank, but throughout my career in different roles. Conversion is one thing, but you have an opportunity to have a relationship with the customer at the much topper end of the funnel. So thinking about, when you might think about awareness versus consideration and then conversion. So the first touch point a customer might have is they might engage with a small piece of content on your website, for instance. So you have an opportunity to subscribe them onto a newsletter or something like that. And that's a form of lead nurture, I guess. What you want to be able to do is set up a really clear experience or strategy where how you can drive the customer through from that awareness all the way through to conversion, and what are the different touch points that they go through for you to then turn them into a converted customer. And then once you've done that, you want to think about, from a converted customer, how can I turn this customer into a customer that becomes an advocate of the brand or the product, right? So, and understanding, I guess, your addressable audience there, right? So you've got prospective customers, you've got active customers, then you've got customers that are advocates, and then you might also have customers that have left you, right? So how do I then win them back? So these should all form part of your sort of product or marketing strategy, and then you should be able to build sort of strategies or micro strategies within that mix to help you define your campaign material effectively.
Yeah. Okay. And yeah, I mean, it's interesting because, you know, the space, I'm curious how this works in your team, because you guys are product marketing, right? And there's many different flavors, product marketing. You know, the background that I worked in was all strictly kind of strategy planning, product development and launching. And we were always at arm's length from the marketing execution of getting right into these possibilities of the data we could have captured earlier that could substantiate some of our strategies or addressable market and things like that. How does that play out in your team? I'm curious if you know, where do you guys start and finish versus the marketing execution side of the business and collaborating with them on this kind of work?
Yeah, so for us, it's we're pretty lucky. We have we're able to we work very closely with our product development teams as well on how they're developing their products. So we'll have a say in what the sort of value proposition looks like right at the top. And then we can help define how we then target the customers based on those value props. So effectively within my team, I empower the guys to really get in there, understand the products, but also look at, you know, the competitor mix as well. What are our competitors doing in product marketing, and what could we be doing to, I guess, effectively get some competitive advantage out of it as well. So really, I guess what I don't do is go, you know, this is your role and you should be just limited to that. Whilst you might have a PD, you really should be exploring all the opportunities that are available to you from a product marketing standpoint.
Yeah. And does the team get hands-on with the digital side of things as well? Like, do they have direct impact and you know, sourcing into the data that's generated from that nurturing stage of the customer journey?
Yeah, absolutely. And we're lucky enough that we have some really good, I guess, buy-in with other teams across the business. So we have enterprise data, we have the data. So we work really closely with them around getting the data. We then use that data to inform our marketing campaigns and how we go and target customers.
Yeah. Okay. And then, so I suppose leading back to a little bit of that, I suppose kind of bit more business and product strategy, commercial side of things. You know, what role are you seeing, I suppose, or adopting with data within customer segmentation and applying that commercial kind of view, not just the marketing execution? How's that playing out for you guys?
Another great question from you, Jay. So really, segmentation is still really critical to our business. And understanding our segments, and especially our profitable segments by product, right? So we have multiple products, and then we might have one product who's, you know, brings in an entry segment, but we then need to understand is how can I take that customer all the way through their product lifecycle with MeBank and turn them into, for example, a home loan customer, which is what we see is probably more of our most profitable customer. Mm-hmm. So understanding that whole journey and understanding how we take them through that journey is a really, I guess, a commercial way for us to drive the right behavior from our customers.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay, cool. And then, yeah, I've got one more question to cover, and then we can have a chat about any closing thoughts. But I mean, I think earlier you talked a bit about checks and balances around privacy of data, and we started off a conversation with these expectations around consumers. And so, you know, as a product marketing leader yourself, how do you manage that within your team? What's the expectation you have? Because, you know, without a doubt, you know, going back 15 years ago, I think you said you've been in the industry for about 15 years. I'm sure the expectations and how knowledgeable a marketing or product marketing person was on data privacy and how to manage that was pretty light on. Whereas now, you know, even myself in the startup space, it's something we have to be really familiar with. There's no one else to kind of turn to. So, yeah, curious as a product marketing leader, what, you know, how you approach that with managing that into your team and the expectations you set.
Yeah, so within my team, data sensitivity is still real paramount. So we have access to a whole host of data, personal and identifiable data as well. So the way we move that data around internally, as well as with how we use that data with our vendors and our partners, is really critical. So having things like encryption set up around data transfer is really important. How we organize our data. The one piece that's always top of mind for me is things like unsubscribes and marketing consent. So not all of your customers sign up to your products and expect to be marketed to. So I guess understanding that, and if they've said, we've opted out of this campaign, make sure you don't go back out to them, because that's just going to probably pull you into a lawsuit perhaps, or get fined. So, data privacy and data sensitivity is really top of mind and something we take very seriously. And I instill that sort of confidence in my team as well.
Yeah, and how does that play out from like a recruitment standpoint? If you're considering a new team member, is this something you drill into during the recruitment process? Does it jump out at you if somebody's got some reference to their capability and experience with handling data in a sensitive environment? Is that something you look for?
Absolutely. I mean, in highly regulated environments, and as you would know, having worked in one, having that exposure and that experience is great to have within the team, because they know how to operate. Otherwise, you do have to spend some time with them, because there is a difference working from a smaller sort of startup, going to a highly regulated environment, and then playing with data and what to do with it, and what not to do with it as well. So being able to do both is quite critical. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Cool. Well, that's kind of all the questions I had prepared. So, any final thoughts you want to share as part of this chat?
Yeah, look, a couple of final thoughts for me is, look, data and privacy is obviously really important, but data collection is also important. Otherwise, as product marketers, we're really limited in what we can do. So I guess being able to work within the realms of restrictions, but still being able to drive creativity is still, is still our goal from a marketing standpoint. So that'd be my sort of final take on it.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, as my experience develops across, different industries that I've worked across as well, I think it is something that, as I said, it's kind of come to the forefront a lot more in the last few years, and I've felt that myself. And I think being able to have enough knowledge and awareness of it to maintain integrity, not cut any corners just because you got to hit your growth targets and all these things. And lastly, I do believe that if you're able to approach it in a way that has a genuine focus on, as I said, creating value for customers in the process, and not just collecting it for our own cost, but creating value. That's a bit more of a respectful way to approach it. So, but it is something that it's something that we have to be conscious of on a day-to-day basis of what we are collecting, how we use it, and how we create value from it. So. Cool. Well, thanks for the chat, and I hope everybody watching found that useful and interesting chat. So, if you want to reach out to either of us on LinkedIn, you can find our bios on the Product Marketing Alliance website, and hope to speak to everybody again soon.
Thanks, Chase. Good to chat to you too.
Whether you're sinking your teeth into a PMA event for the first time or have come back for a second bite of the cherry, welcome to Product Marketing Rendezvous. Before we set the ball rolling, we want to say a huge thank you to our speakers, you and everyone who is joining this event from around the world. We are sure you'll enjoy the sessions from our one-of-a-kind international lineup. With expert presentations, specialist talks and deep dive panel sessions on the agenda, suffice it to say, you're in for a treat. And here is some more good news. The insights don't stop here, not by a long shot. Our Slack community is home to dynamic conversations and contributions from thousands upon thousands of fellow product marketers. So if you're not already a member, come and join us today. It won't cost you a penny. If you have questions for the speakers or want to connect with them further, then please ask away in the comments section of the video or catch up with them on the PMA Slack community. But for now, sit back and join the rendezvous.
Hi guys, my name is Jaideep and I'm head of product marketing in MindValley. I started in the field of product marketing in the year 2018 with the role of launch specialist. And from there, I've taken multiple roles or multiple hats in MindValley. From being a launch specialist, I took the role of head of Evergreen in 2019. And there we scaled around about 40% in terms of Evergreen revenue growth. And from there on, I'm heading both launch and Evergreen as head of product marketing currently. In my journey of 3 years in MindValley, what I wanted to share with you guys, or what insights I got the most, was actually how could you scale your Evergreen revenue in product marketing? Where I'm coming from is basically that product marketing is generally associated with launches, or most of the people are still working in terms of the launch cycle, in terms of scaling, in terms of product marketing. But what I wanted to address over here, and when I was speaking with Product Marketing Alliance as well, was the fact that how Evergreen is something that a lot of people have not capitalized on, and that's what I wanted to address. So what my first thing that I start off is, what is Evergreen and why it exists? As I said, generally, product marketing is associated with launches, but launching a product is only the first step. You've just laid the foundation of how to market a product. You don't even know how it's going to work, what's going to happen. Sometimes you're lucky and or your market research is super good and you're able to scale in the first round in your launch, and then you're optimizing on your launch basis. But there's where the role of Evergreen comes into picture. How do I define? Launch is defined as a one-time revenue, where Evergreen is an all-time revenue. What does it exactly mean? As I said, launch is just a stepping stone. It's just building the base. And it's built in terms of creating a profitable environment or a funnel in place. Whereas now, Evergreen is a long-lasting impression. It's always there, which is yielding money for you on a regular basis, even when you're sleeping. So it's in a very simple financial term, what I would explain is launch is like your active revenue, whereas Evergreen is your passive revenue. We want our active revenue to make more passive revenue. So once we launch a product, we want it to continuously be making money for us, even when we are sleeping or even when we are not doing anything with it. And that's where the role of Evergreen comes into picture. Now, before I go ahead further in terms of how MindValley grew in terms of Evergreen, I wanted to share a story of MindValley, or what happened in 2018, and how did product marketing, or how did MindValley grew its further revenue in terms of growing through Evergreen. If I had to be giving context, in 2017, MindValley was a very launch-oriented company, and 70% of its revenue was coming from launches. And that's the year of 2018 where we started focusing around that let's move beyond launches. Let's create a regular stream of revenue that starts coming in place. Till 2017, we were very oriented in terms of launches, and we had a couple of products out of like around about 10% of the products only on Evergreen, and which were not even paid that much attention towards. But we changed everything in 2018. We started focusing and testing of products on Evergreen. And now the scenario is, and comparing it to 2017, in 2017, MindValley's revenue came 70% from launches, whereas in 2020, 75% of MindValley's revenue is coming from Evergreen. In just 3 years, we changed the entire dynamics of the organization of where the main revenue channel for the organization was. We've been growing more than 40% year on year, but also we've been scaling in Evergreen and making that revenue double. That's the role of Evergreen that we've been playing in terms of MindValley. So going ahead, what I wanted to share with you guys is the fact that how we've been using Evergreen as a scaling opportunity and what are the lessons that we've learned. But before I want to go into lessons, we had some bottlenecks in terms of going all Evergreen. So the bottlenecks that we thought or we faced during the time when we wanted to go Evergreen was basically, oh, if we are going to move completely towards Evergreen, then who's going to be managing those funnels? What is the scalability of performance? We don't even know how it's going to perform or how we're going to be scaling. If every product that we've launched is on Evergreen, how are we going to be managing it? How are we going to be scaling the performance out of it? And being on Evergreen, how is it going to make money on launches? I'm capitalizing on my own list, my own warm audiences and trying to convert them into more and more money. But Evergreen is like, do I target warm audience? Do I look in terms of acquiring more audiences? What should the goal for me be? And that's what I'm going to be addressing in the next part of this session, which is basically lessons I learned while scaling Evergreen. So over here, I'll be covering up 7 different key metrics or key aspects of key learnings that I had learned in this scenario in terms of Evergreen. The first one, create a strong product and connect the customers through a community, and they will make the new customers have the best experiences. When I said is, after we created a product, we always made sure that we connected them through other customers. What it made sure, it created a referral program with each other in terms of how your best people or best customers started referring more and more people. Over here, we made sure that all our products had a tribe or a community in place, and we connected all our customers in place. What it did was, within years, we started building off ambassadors from our top products, and these were the people who were managing the engagement or our communities or our tribes. And we didn't have to manage a lot or invest a lot into these resources. So, but what we did over there was we just created a space for them to engage with themselves. They could share what was their experiences, and they were pathing or creating the journey for new customers to take in place. Therefore, a very strong community is a very strong aspect. A lot of people in terms of a program are not just looking for a change in themselves or a solution for themselves. They're looking for a community that is going through the same pain point, and they want to be addressed or taken through a path from them. So your old customers are a big nurturing way to your new customers. Second, the highest number of releases, the better it is. This is something that we learned. When we started going Evergreen, we generally did not have releases or like programs or communities in place. We just let people buy and consume the program. It was going fairly well, but it wasn't growing as much as we wanted it to be. Therefore, what we started doing is we started creating more and more releases in picture. What does release mean? Meaning we started creating a date where a lot of people could start the program at the same date, and there was a tribe or a community that was supporting in terms of starting that journey of the program. What it did was basically, once you had a date in mind, you were targeting or promoting that product for that date. And what it did for a user, it created a scarcity element in Evergreen that made them buy the program because they wanted to start with that tribe or a community. And thus increasing the sales by 20%. First, from not having any releases or dates for our programs, we brought in dates which were monthly, and that boosted our revenue by around about 25% plus. Then we thought about why only monthly? Why not even scale it furthermore? From a monthly scenario, we went to bi-weekly, and from a bi-weekly, we went to a weekly scenario. Means every week we were having different releases of the same product and engaging with multiple users. One, every release or every shortening of the release increased the conversions by almost 20%, and thus giving us a stronger and a bigger tribe in terms of our community to manage with. So that is lesson number 2. Lesson number 3, once we started scaling on Evergreen, which was primarily 50% cold and 50% warm, our own list started increasing. First, when Evergreen started in MindValley, we were more equipped or dealing with, oh, let's start Evergreen to acquire more people so that they can join a list. It wasn't about making revenue. It wasn't about making like profits. So the first aspect was we were making losses, but we were acquiring more people, which wasn't the right approach, which I'll also address in the future lessons. But then we started investing in the fact that like if we are making money through Evergreen, we should always try to get them into the ecosystem. So we started pushing Evergreen to be more cold audience oriented, and we started pushing more and more people to get into the MindValley ecosystem. So we targeted people who were not aware about MindValley, and objective became that let's bring them into the list, which expanded in terms of us increasing the list size year on year, and thus improving the performance of launches, because we had a lot of people who were exposed towards the products, and then whenever we released a new product, they were the first ones to get to know about it. Fourth lesson, make the criteria for paid platforms as profitability. As I was mentioning in the previous point over here, when we started Evergreen, our first start was, oh, let's acquire more and more people and start building a list into place. But beyond that, we just started evolving the criteria that we were building for our paid platforms. Objective is we just don't invest money to create a list of people. But objective became, how do we invest money to create a list of more people, thus also creating more revenue and thus making profit. Now, it was a stage-to-stage learning, right? As I said, first we were just investing money to acquire more and more people and trying to convert them through launches. But then we changed the criteria. We said, okay, let's not just focus in terms of creating more and more lists. Let's focus in terms of making the money back of what we are investing through our paid platforms. So the second criteria came. So whatever we were investing, objective became, okay, let's make the money back. Let's make the money back. And that's how we started scaling up. And the third criteria we came, why just make the money back? Let's, whatever investments I'm making in terms of investing on my paid platforms, or I'm investing into other resources, let me make a profit out of it. And then we started changing the criteria towards having more profitability even after investing from a paid platforms. And currently we actually make around about, our aim is around about making 120% more than the investments that we are making into place. And that's how we have been scaling year on year, and we plan to go ahead with this strategy. Lesson number 5, make all channels to Evergreen. Currently, paid traffic or paid channels are something that you acquire. But a lot of times we have created so many channels or ecosystems that we do not capitalize on, be it YouTube, be it your own platforms, be it your blogs. Assuming during a launch, you just use it when a launch is happening, and a lot of times this place has become vacant or not being utilized around. But on Evergreen, what we do is we use all our different channels into place, be it YouTube. You go on a YouTube video, you consume the video, there's always a sign that you can connect to MindValley or a program with MindValley through that video itself. So you're using those channels to acquire more and more people. We do it with every platform that's there live, or any channel that's there live with us. We use YouTube, we use blogs, Google searches, SEO, everywhere, own websites. All of them are actually triggering that you can buy anytime and everywhere. And that automatically not just reduced a pressure in terms of what we were investing in terms of paid marketing, but we created sources or channels which were more organic and would always be making money for us. So one of the key lessons is make sure that you use your organic sources in the best possible way. Lesson number 6 and 7, innovation and automation. Once you launch a product, the biggest thing is you're optimizing or innovating from launch to launch, which in a way is a good strength, but is also a bottleneck. It's catering to one kind of audiences and it's not expanding. Whereas what happens in Evergreen, you have the scope where you're continuously working on your products and you can continuously be optimizing and scaling week to week, month on month. I'll just give an example. Last year, we released a product and it did not perform really, really well on a launch. And we were like, oh, it's not performing. But then once we were shifting towards Evergreen, we changed the entire marketing angle and the psychology behind the program. What happened was it started performing like crazy in terms of Evergreen. We started using more ad assets from the authors or the host, and we started using more videos from them, and it started scaling with new angles. Sometimes during a launch, we do not know that it's going to work or not, but Evergreen gives us that scope of actually optimizing the entire ecosystem and gives us more opportunities to scale revenue itself. Secondly, we are a funnel-based company. We've been working on the education industry for a while, and one of the things is that it's somehow when you're doing launch, the scope of innovation is reduced because you do not have much opportunities in place. But with all your funnels being live at all moments of time, it gives us a scope where we are like, okay, these funnels are live. Why not we continuously optimize the funnels, be it on the marketing psychology, behavior psychology, but also the page designs and the flows that you're creating, you're always optimizing it. Currently, we have around about 30 plus funnels in MindValley. And approximately, our objective is to be running a test on each and every funnel in terms of optimization. What it does, it makes sure that you're always growth oriented and you're always optimizing on your funnel and your angles for your products. But also at the same time, it's developing your team to think out of the box and you're always innovating. And whenever the chance of a launch comes back, you've optimized the funnel so much that you're able to capitalize even more launch revenue out of it. Automation. Now, one of the things is when you're scaling in terms of either making more releases or either you're making more and more like products in place, it's very important that you figure out those places in terms of automation. Just giving an example, when we started scaling multiple releases, it became a difficult chance of how do we manage the tribes, or how do we manage our communities, or how do we make sure that it doesn't add a lot of burden. So whatever we identified that what are the things that we have to do repetitive, and we started removing those tasks in place. And we started creating an automated system in place. And these innovation and automations were helping us in terms of scaling up faster and much quicker. So these were the key 7 lessons that I learned in terms of product marketing and how to scale your product on Evergreen. I hope this was super insightful of what you could learn and could implement in your own company or how you want to work with. And that's it from my end. And the last, thank you for attending. If you still have questions, connect with me on LinkedIn. My name is Jaideep, and I'm head of product marketing for MindValley. Thank you.
Welcome to Product Marketing Rendezvous. We're preparing to unleash yet another exciting presentation that's sure to set your pulse racing. But first, we want to thank you and our ensemble of speakers and participants for helping us bring this pioneering event to life. Without you, it'd be fantasy, a mere pipe dream. And remember, have your questions at the ready, because the speakers will be answering your questions and offering tailored support after their presentations. Leave your question in the comments below and get awesome advice from an expert in the field. It's really that simple. Let's resume the rendezvous.
Hi everyone, thanks for your time and tuning in. And a big thank you to the Product Marketing Alliance for having me. Today, I'm really excited to share with you how Canva was able to identify market opportunity and begin winning a new segment in just a few short months. While it might seem simple enough, there's a lot that goes into zeroing in on your audience that you should go after. As a PMM, you'll have to engage with a growing number of stakeholders, interview customers, launch experiments, and so much more. Knowing where to start can be tricky, and one of the biggest mistakes you can make is something that'll set you off course as you drive towards go-to-market. A big challenge for a lot of us out there is knowing what the opportunity is and then how to capture it. There's a lot of risk if you don't do it right. By just using assumptions to know who your audience is, you could totally overlook or deprioritize an important audience. You might not include the right internal stakeholders, and you might misunderstand how to best market to your audience, which can waste time and resources. These concerns were top of mind for all of us last year. As the world changed within an instant in early 2020, and more people were communicating remotely, we went through a paradigm shift at Canva. We had to redefine our brand narrative and overall how we thought about the Canva user experience. A big challenge for a lot of us out there is knowing what the opportunity is and then how to capture it. There's a lot of risk if you don't do it right. By just using assumptions to know who your audience is, you could totally overlook or deprioritize an important audience. You could not include the right stakeholders. You might misunderstand how to best market to your audience, which can really waste time and resources. These concerns were top of mind for us last year. As the world changed within an instant in early 2020, and more people were communicating remotely, we went through a paradigm shift. We had to redefine our brand narrative and overhaul how we thought about the Canva user experience. It was an effort that required collaboration across 120 people working remotely, with just 6 months to launch. And while it wasn't always a straight line from chaos to clarity, we were able to shift our perception and start to dominate a new market with a few key steps. For those that might not be familiar, Canva is the world's fastest growing design platform. Used worldwide and accessible in over 100 languages, Canva empowers the world to design anything. And we make it easy for anyone to create over 100 different design types. Everything from social media posts to video to websites to t-shirts and mugs, and even really cool presentations, just like this one. Our mission has always been to empower the world to design. Since 2013, we challenged the idea that design requires years of mastery or expensive tools. The ability to design and communicate anything and achieve your goals should be democratized. And we've been pretty successful so far. Over 7 years, we've amassed 40 million monthly active users, the most of any design platform in the world. And our customers have created more than 3 billion designs on Canva. Our customer base is extremely varied. We have a ton of use cases and many personas, like couples creating wedding invitations, teachers creating lesson plans for students, students finishing projects for school, sales teams creating pitch decks, nonprofits designing campaigns to drive fundraising and awareness, entrepreneurs designing their company's logo and brand identity, and so much more. People from all over the world create, share, and publish anything. But we noticed something pretty interesting. A lot of these users were designing on their own. Despite having the ability to create teams and share designs, we weren't seeing a lot of users interacting with these features, which made sense because we never really made our users aware of these features historically. When looking at users that created teams, we noticed that they were more likely to share designs with each other, to work on designs together, to add comments and communicate right in Canva. And overall, that increase in product adoption correlated to greater retention when compared to solo users. And we had a whole other segment too, solo users who belong to enterprises, coming onto Canva to create content for work, unaware of other colleagues or departments that were using Canva as well. Oftentimes, users that were designing on Canva for work, as perhaps many of you might be doing today, ran the risk of duplicating work done by other team members or producing off-brand content born out of a need to just get something out the door. When we took a step back and assessed the gap between where we were winning and where we wanted to be, we saw a big opportunity, and that became particularly poignant in 2020. At the start of last year, we had long-term plans to expand upon our existing Teams offering. Eventually, we wanted to add more functionality, and only then would we really drive adoption. But as the world changed very quickly, people started leaning on technology as a way to connect and started to look for new ways to communicate even more effectively. It soon became clear that if we didn't act now, we'd fall behind. Timing, as you know, is everything. And we were given a mandate from our founders to come up with a plan quickly. Our first step was to do the work of identifying market opportunity by assessing several data inputs. As a team, we had lots of assumptions about our users, but we needed to conduct research and review data effectively so that when we came up with a plan, we had a solid North Star to align to. An early step was competitive intelligence. Our roadmap does not hinge on competitors. In fact, we span so many categories and use cases that we're often the ones paving the way. But it was important for us to look at both direct and indirect competitors and what they were doing. We wanted to know what features they offered that were all about teams and collaboration. How did they differentiate between their offerings? What messages were they going out to market with? What was their pricing like? Understanding common team narratives helped us craft our own so that we could stand out. And understanding consumer expectations about Teams features helped us define what was table stakes. We had some key findings. We uncovered that many platforms actually restrict the plans that allow for Teams. Oftentimes, if there were free plans, they were capped at 2 to 3 users. We also validated some of our assumptions about pricing and noticed that our pricing was competitive. But there were specific product implications too. Our conclusions were that real-time collaboration was table stakes. It's the market expectation, and without it, we would not be considered a real Teams and collaboration tool. We also decided we didn't want to restrict team functionality to our highest priced teams. Our mission is to democratize design, so we decided we would not cap Teams growth for any plans. We wanted to make it possible for anyone to have a team. For us, reviewing competitors helped us stay on track with our North Star and feel secure in our offering. In parallel, we dove into user research. Our amazing UX team did a ton of work to identify key areas of concern amongst our users and teams. They conducted interviews, dove into past research, connected with our sales teams and support teams, and looked at the data. We uncovered some new findings which were eye-opening. Now, despite the fact that we dog food our own product, a lot of how we use Canva differs from our users. We discovered that we weren't doing enough to tell users about Teams functionality in the onboarding or in the product, and it wasn't easy to stumble upon Teams functionality. For instance, we discovered that we didn't tell users that they could use Canva as a team in the onboarding or in the product. It was not easy to stumble upon it. We didn't communicate why teams were beneficial either. And for existing teams, we didn't make it easy to find team designs or understand how to share designs in folders. It wasn't possible to collaborate in real time either. Looking at the market and our users can be a signal for further product development and narrative shifts. For us, those were the two major elements of this launch, which were significant. To provide our teams with as much clarity as possible on the launch, we pulled out key themes and developed a jobs to be done framework for launch, where we identified our MVP and aligned the different teams across marketing and product towards providing better customer experiences within and outside of the product. The next step after understanding your customers and market is to start work on developing personas to drive positioning, core to any PMM function. But this work can also lead to refining roadmap and ginning up offerings to drive urgency. For the Canva Teams launch, we knew that we had to adjust our USP. Before, it was all about the solo user and their experience. When we looked at the opportunity to grow teams within the business and the prosumer base, we knew that we had to tweak our brand positioning. What was once about empowering everyone became about empowering every team to design anything together. And while we wanted to drive teams growth and be the perfect product for every team in the long term, we knew that to be successful for this launch, we had to be targeted and choose the right audience that would benefit the most from our MVP. There were so many use cases across education, nonprofits, casual creators, prosumers, and enterprise, and so many different roles within each organization type. If we targeted a very wide audience and went to market with broad messaging, we could, at best, have a low impact launch that would see little shift in our team adoption, and at worst, create confusion in the market and then lose out on all segments. When we looked at our total addressable market, we zoomed in on where the opportunity was strongest. We looked at users who experienced the biggest pain points, and we decided to tier our audiences and model a go-to-market approach suited for each as part of this global launch. At the top were prosumers, individuals using Canva to produce content for consumption. These are content creators, entrepreneurs, small businesses. Our goal here was to encourage these users to create content together, as they were power users with a real interest in design. Next, we had existing teams. We wanted to drive awareness of Teams features to encourage more collaboration and sharing. These were with nonprofits, enterprises, and existing pro teams. We also knew our education users had a completely unique set of challenges. We knew early on that our MVP did not meet these requirements, and so we made the decision to exclude them from the launch. Now, as we started looking at how to drive teams amongst pro users, the pro growth team thought about how to go beyond features to maximize teams growth. In our research, we uncovered the barrier to teams growth was pricing. Pro users who might want to collaborate were resistant to purchasing more seats. The pro growth team looked at how to tackle this problem with an experimental lens, which makes sense because at Canva, we have a big experimental culture. We seek to validate everything with data before making any major changes. And so we looked at our linear pricing and ran an onboarding experiment. The growth team ran a number of tests and models to find the point of maximum teams growth. We tested for signups, trial to paid conversions, and retention after the first month. After more than 2 months, we were able to validate a pretty big assumption. By giving pro users 4 additional seats, we were able to remove the barrier of entry and make it possible to create a team. The development of this pricing experiment fundamentally shifted this launch. What started as a tier 2 launch quickly pushed into tier 1. And the promo messaging became central to our campaign identity and go-to-market plan. Now, a big challenge for us during this launch is something that's probably not unfamiliar to a lot of you. We aim to complete a full product build and brand launch in just a few months. But between new research and experiments happening in parallel with marketing plans, plus a pandemic that forced our teams to collaborate remotely, alignment became even more challenging and even more critical. As mentioned before, the go-to-market team consisted of 120 people across 20 different teams, but the original project team was quite small. The challenges we faced were a growing list of feature updates that required clarity across sales, marketing, and other product teams. We also had an expanding list of internal stakeholders who needed to be responsible, accountable, and informed of all updates. This was an outcome of having a process that didn't really align to an ideal launch framework. In a perfect world, there are set stages. There's an idea phase and a build phase, etc. And there's enough time to test all of your assumptions, to frequently check in with every stakeholder and gather clear consensus on every decision made. But this is rarely a reality. It more often looks like this, where you move from chaos into clarity. This type of thinking is something that empowers teams to move fast. You need to be agile and flexible and understand that sometimes things might not happen in the right order. As a PMM and leader in your business, you might not have all the answers at the start. As product marketers, we're all uniquely positioned. We're in the cross-section of so many different groups, and it's up to us to not only build the go-to-market plan, but to identify gaps and make sure that the right people are across goals. Our position means that we can communicate business decisions and updates and be the one to really help rally teams towards one common goal. And as PMMs, it's our job to be the internal communicators across sales, marketing, product, and execs. Oftentimes, try as you might have to shift milestones, and they're moved to weeks or even days before everything needs to go live, as was the case with us. What helped us get closer to launch was establishing daily stand-ups with the go-to-market team, establishing clear milestones to achieve and keeping our North Star in mind as we edged closer to the go-live date. Another key way that we added clarity to launch was by establishing a centralized product narrative. Positioning and narrative shared internally can really help align teams and move them from chaos to clarity. So, how did we do? The outcome was a full-scale marketing effort across all of our organic and paid channels, and we went global. We developed positioning and brand identities that represented the teams across each of our key segments. We looked at where prospects and customers were and developed a strategy to target them with the right message at the right time. We looked through performance marketing, landing pages, email and mobile messaging, communities on Facebook, LinkedIn, and Instagram. We pushed sponsored content and ads on YouTube and podcasts, and we leveraged our team to get awareness across key tech publications. These were all tier 1 campaign efforts and were a massive lift across so many different teams. And that's why it was integral that we kept the go-to-market process inclusive and took a collaborative approach and lead on channel owners for strategy and execution with the goals that we set. Now, the last point I want to touch on is a bit obvious. Oftentimes we can get caught up in the repositioning and messaging of a feature or product, and we might lose sight of the fact that if we really want to dominate a new audience, we actually need a product that solves for key pain points. If we go to market with a product that doesn't even meet or even exceed expectations, we miss the opportunity to impress our net new and existing users. Going to market in collaboration with product as an extension of the go-to-market plan is an essential piece to creating that perfect, seamless experience. At Canva, we are a design-led company, of course, and it was integral to us that our launch reflected that approach. And here's just a snapshot of the ways that we made it work together. The whole launch centered around the need for users to come together to design on any document at the same time. This was a market expectation of any cloud-based collaboration platform. And so it was integral that we had this capability in our MVP. Since this launch was about encouraging teams' growth, we also had to make it easier for users to create teams. We made teams creation prominent on the Canva homepage, and we incorporated our brand marketing touch in our pop-up modals. We also brought brand into the product onboarding flow. From our research, we knew that users had trouble getting started on Canva. So we identified top tasks users first complete to design. Then through introducing strategically placed tooltips that were specific to users' roles, we guided users across the product, and we simplified the design, creation, and team invite experience, with the goal of encouraging users to quickly create a team space conducive to teamwork. Now, one last feature I'll mention is one that I'm pretty excited about. It was something integral to the enterprise audience. We saw that there were so many enterprise users who were unaware that their colleagues had created a team on Canva. And on the other side, we had a lot of businesses that purchased Canva but had trouble getting employees to jump on their team account. So we looked at creating a frictionless way to surface teams on the homepage. With team discovery settings, admins could allow other Canva users from their organization to discover and join their Canva team. This was a great way to drive teams' growth, particularly amongst our B2B audience. As remote working quickly becomes the norm, people are finding new ways to collaborate online, getting things done, resulting in tremendous growth for Canva. Not only are people choosing Canva for all of their design needs, but the number of those teaming up on designs has actually almost doubled since June last year. From small business owners teaming up on social media graphics, large enterprises keeping their assets on brand across global offices, classrooms and nonprofits sharing their vision through design, and families creating greeting cards for loved ones, Designing together is here to stay. Where we're focused on this year is on growing large teams and driving a roadmap that really focuses on solving some of the most complex problems within the B2B space. I hope that sharing this Canva journey with you has either inspired you to start your own journey of targeting and winning a new segment, or maybe it's sparked ideas around how you can really optimize for your current markets. Winning new markets can be challenging, but with a solid foundation of research and data, you can build towards a seamless customer experience that will delight customers and keep them coming back for more. Thank you.
Welcome back to Product Marketing Rendezvous. Having a great time so far? We can't say we're surprised. After all, it's an event quite like no other. The good news, we've plenty more magic up our sleeves that's guaranteed to blow you and your fellow PMMs off your feet. But before we serve up another slice of product marketing prowess, we want to take a moment to thank everyone who's played a part in making this event possible. Speakers, presenters, and of course you, the product marketing community. Remember, you can engage with speakers and their sessions by posting your question in the comments section or reaching them in our Slack community. Now sit back and above all, enjoy.
Hello everyone, this is Aditya. I'm the product marketing manager for Signify X Philips Lighting. I'm currently taking care of the smart lighting devices called Philips Hue. In today's discussion, we will be actually going through positioning for smart home devices. So the idea is for you guys, I will take you through the positioning, how do we position different products, and what is the way to actually do that. And the example which we'll be taking in today's discussion will be on smart devices. Smart devices are on the way to become a household commodities in the coming years. While this is clear with the emerging trends that smart home, it's going to be a commodity in the next markets. How exactly do we position it? That's the question we are going to be tackling today. So this is the agenda for today. First, we'll be going through the smart home market trends. So it's very important to understand what kind of market trends your particular product portfolio is going through. What is the market sizing, what is the market potential, etc., etc. Then it's the second part of the agenda is identifying the target audience. What is the relevant target audience for you? How do you select the audience? How do we target those kind of audiences, the segmentation, the targeting, etc. And what will be the relevant use cases for them? And the last part, of course, will be the right proposition. What kind of propositioning can we do? How do we select the right proposition? So these three agendas we are going to be discussing today. Let's start with the first one, which is on the market trends. For smart home product category, the market trends, as you can clearly see here in this trending, that from 2017 onwards till 2023, the market sizing is expected to double by in these 6 years, and the compounded annual growth rate is expected to be 22.8% for smart lighting and sensors, which is amongst one of the highest CAGR growth in the industries across the industries. And the business size is expected to grow up to $207 million from $30 million. So smart home automation, these are the latest buzzwords in the industry even as of today. But still, as of today, it's still considered niche. It's still considered to be for maybe rich people, for IoT specific. Whereas by the year 2023, it might actually grow up to be a household name. Smart home might actually grow and be a part of maybe, let's say, every 1 in 2 households. And household penetration in the next 5 years is expected to grow up to 20%, which is a phenomenal growth. In the coming years, we might just see smart homes becoming household commodities. Already, as of today, we are aware of the names like Google Home, Amazon Echo, Alexa, Siri. These are household names even as of today. Going forward, we might see other smart home devices like Samsung Smart Things, like Sonos, JBL Entertainments, Razer Entertainment, Philips Hue Light. We might grow and see that even these smart lightings, which are not the platforms in such, but rather the accessories which can connect with the platform, you will see them becoming a mainstay in the coming years. What can you do with these smart home devices? You can ask your Google Home to set an alarm for you in the morning. That's pretty standard, right? You ask your Google Home, okay, Google, turn on alarm at 6:30 a.m. Going forward, or actually even as of today, what you can do is you can set the routines via your lights with that Google Home itself. You can ask your Google Home to wake you in the morning by a gentle wake up. So your lights will gradually mimic the sunrise, and in the 30 minutes time frame, it will just continue to grow up to 100% brightness. Similarly, it can also simulate a sundown and create a go to sleep option. You can turn on your air conditioning again through your voice command. You can turn off your door locks. Multiple things you can do as of now. And all of these are now getting integrated into the new households as well, into the new constructions. There are multiple houses, multiple buildings you see now, which are already integrating these kind of smart home devices. Already we see a lot of this getting implemented in the retail, in the hospitality segment. Now it is also getting integrated into the B2C platform. So till now we have decided and rather agreed on that business size or market trends for smart devices is actually sounding pretty favorable. Let's see what kind of target audience we can look at. For this, I will refer to this technology adoption life cycle curve. This takes care of the innovators, the early adopters, early majority, late majority, laggards. I'm sure that you might have already gone through these different adopters. Innovators actually account for roughly 2.5% of the market. Early adopters are like 12.5% of the market. Early majority, late majority are 34% each, and balance is laggards. So for smart home, what will be your first view? What do you think, which category will be most suited for a smart lighting? As is evident from the curve itself, it's the smart tech market, right? It's the innovators and the early adopters, the people who are actually willing to risk, who are actually willing to try out new products, new categories. These are really the people who are also the opinion leaders, who really value and are open to experiment so that they can show off, or rather have that, develop that social currency with these kind of new products. Some examples: Tesla. When Tesla actually first came, I think only the innovators and the early adopters were the ones who actually went after it. Vast majority did not even consider buying Tesla till the technology had been proven, till it was absolutely sure that people were going ahead and buying and there was no risk at all. Late majorities would rather even wait till the time that it is going to become a mainstay. So as of today, late majority has still not taken over and considered Tesla. Laggards will be the ones who are the last one to join on the bandwagon. They really will not go on to try a Tesla till it's almost mandatory, until everyone else is already doing it. So kind of people who are more set in their ways, who are more traditional in their approaches. Yeah, so for smart devices, innovators and early adopters, they are the ones which we usually go for. But as I mentioned earlier, this really limits the market size, right? You are now limited to only 16-17% of the market. Even then, here comes a part of market sizing. Now, this is something which a lot of marketeers and a lot of the time while product development, people ignore, considering this technology adoption life cycle, and you vastly overestimate your actual market size. By the year 2023, when we are saying that the market is expected to double, which basically means that we will be moving from smart tech to functional and easy tech. So this already kind of defines who should we target. We should be moving from innovators and early adopters now to early majority to get a vast chunk of that business, vast chunk of those volumes. Now, if we are targeting, how does that differentiate us? How does that differentiate the product? What difference does it make in our perspective, from marketing perspective? For innovators and early adopters, if we are targeting them, then we will be better off if we differentiate on the basis of technical specifications. If we tell them, you know what, the generation 1 had XYZ benefits, generation 2 has 20% extra. We clearly tabulate the specifications for them. We clearly tabulate the benefits for them. And they will love it. They love all the technology mumbo jumbo, honestly. They are there to compare, they are there to give their opinions onto different products. You will see their blogs, you will see the reviews, you will see their tech vlogs, etc., etc. So they will absolutely love those technical specifications. While if you are targeting the early majority is not about those technical specifications. For them, it is more functional. It is more easy tech. So here, actually, I like to quote one phrase. I would rather have the smart devices not be called smart home devices. I would rather have them called simple home devices, because that is essentially what we are trying to do. We are trying to create a home which is simpler to operate, not more difficult. If you are installing a Google Home in your house, but maybe your family doesn't know how to operate it, if it requires a lot of instructions to work it out, it will not work. You will never be able to get to the early majority. Thankfully for us, it's not that easy. It's not that difficult. It's very easy to operate. And also it solves one particular use case. You are able to differentiate from the existing offerings because there is no such offerings, and it still brings a value to your house which you never knew you needed. That is how we are able to pitch it to early majorities, and that is how we will be able to double our market size in the next 5 years. So today, when we talk about what do people associate with smart home, people today link smart home to innovation and IoT technologies. The general assumption is it is more high tech. It's innovation, it is modern, it is intelligent, it is smart. Whereas if you look at the right hand side of the column, it is smart home. In the smart home benefits tab, its benefit is it simplifies one's life. Its benefit is not that it is the most modern solution. It's the state of the art product. No, its benefit is that it really simplifies your life. You are able to walk out of your house and not be concerned about whether I turned off the lights or not. With a simple voice command, you can get it done, or a simple tap on your phone app and you can get it done. While most of the industries have already internalized this mantra of features tell, benefits sell, I think somewhere smart home largely struggles with it, which is what this industry as a whole needs to improve on. I think that has something to do with the products being called as IoT devices. Rather, as I mentioned earlier, if you call it simple home or simple devices, I think it would cause a whole lot of difference. And that is how, as a marketeer, you are supposed to think. Think of how it will actually appeal to your target audiences. What will make more sense? What target audience am I trying? What use case am I trying to drive? What kind of business size am I expecting from this particular product category? Let's move on to the value proposition now. So what is required is a very, very clear value proposition. The value offer, it needs to be very simple, but it does not mean that the communication should be boring. Make sure that whatever you communicate, it is creative, it is emotionally engaging, but still gets the clear message across. Your value proposition is something, it's a proposition that promises to satisfy a key customer need. The need can be clearly stated, it can be unstated, it can be an internal need, it can whatever it be, but you have to satisfy that critical customer need, and you have to do it better than the next best alternative. The next best alternative, for example, in smart lighting, for right now there is no such thing as a smart lighting best alternative. Previously, what used to be the case was a wall switch. That's it. You go up, you turn on the wall switch, and then you turn off the wall switch. That is the next best alternative. And when you're giving that value proposition, the ROI may not be the only thing to consider. It can be a lot of other things. What is the pro and con of the next best alternative against your offerings? It can be convenience. It can be perceived social currency. It can be perceived social status. It all depends on what is the perception of the customer. The good thing is you as a marketing manager, you can help create and shape the perception of the customer depending on the value proposition. So it's basically a loop, and you can help modify the perception of the customer in order to make your product much more engaging and much more appealing to the customer. So there are three perspectives which are required over here. The opportunity, which I'll be covering in the next slide. The value offer, which is what is in it for the customer. Why will the customer buy your product? What need does it satisfy? And the last is the business rationale. What is in it for my business? You can be having a wonderful product. It satisfies absolutely every customer need that is there to satisfy. But you might not be running a profitable business. End of the day, it's still a low business size with a low profitability. You will not be going for that particular product category because the business rationale does not make sense. It has to make sense for the customer. It also has to make sense for your business. Only then you can have a sustainable business, also appreciated by the customer as well. Let's look at the opportunity. So the source of business, it helps to define the market opportunity size, where the business will be coming from, what customer segment, the first part of what we were discussing in this presentation today. You have to take care of the insights. What is the primary target's unmet need or tension? Who is your primary target stakeholder, first of all? What is their attitude? What is their present belief? What is their present buying pattern? What are they experiencing today? What would they like to achieve from their product, from this product category? Next is the alternatives, the competition, the direct competition, the indirect competition. If you have a smart lighting, who is supplying the smart lighting as well? Indirect alternative. If it is not a smart lighting, what kind of other lightings are the customers buying? What channels are they considering to buy from? What are the pros and cons of the current alternatives? Next is the target. Very clearly list what the stakeholder has to gain or lose from your proposition. Describe their characteristics, describe their attributes. What are their behaviors? Get an insight on all of these points. What are the pain and gains? This is the core insight. How can we address their unmet need, whatever pain or whatever tension the customer has? How can we address that so that the insight is actually fully actionable? Once you gather all these informations, once you are ready with all this data, then you can go ahead and summarize the opportunity statement, wherein you will describe the target, the insight, and the alternatives in just 2 sentences, not more than that. Jargon-free 2 sentences, describing very clearly who is the target, what are the insights you have, what are the alternatives you have. This will help you very clearly define the proposition. And at the end of the day, one clear sentence that you have to remember. You are the product marketing manager, but the customer is the king. Our opinion, although interesting, is completely irrelevant. Just keep that at the core of whatever initiatives you drive. With this, let's move on to the last slide, which is the proposition use case metrics. We have covered the first point, which is choosing the target audiences. We have covered based on size, based on technology adoption, based on your product's position in the market, you choose the target audience. Relevant to the target audience, develop well-differentiated product proposition, which is also capable to inspire creative and engaging content, which are able to drive a very clear, simple message across. And last, develop locally relevant, attractive to users use cases, which are functionally and emotionally engaging. With that, we are done for the day. Okay, Alexa, say thank you.